All right, let's dive into a political scandal so wild it almost feels like it's straight out of a spy movie. We're talking secret arms deals, illegal cash for rebels, and a constitutional crisis that really tested the limits of American law.
You know, that quote you're seeing? That's not just some dry political language. No, that's a bombshell from the final congressional report. It's telling us that this wasn't just a simple mistake. It was a deliberate choice to operate in the shadows, to build a secret government running on secret money.
So, picture this. It's the mid-1980s, and inside the White House, two completely separate, covert foreign policies are running at the same time. The big problem? Both of them went directly against public statements and, more importantly, against U.S. law. So, on the surface, everything looked above board. You had the Boland Amendment, which was crystal clear. No U.S. military aid to the Contra rebels in Nicaragua, period. And the official policy towards Iran? A strict arms embargo. But behind the scenes, a totally different game was being played, one that was completely illegal.
So how do you even pull off a secret foreign policy? Well, you create a secret company. They actually called it the Enterprise, basically a private, off-the-books ghost operation built to do the government's dirty work with zero legal accountability. It was like a shadow branch of the National Security Council operating completely outside of anyone's watch.
Okay, so this is where it gets really wild. These two secret operations, the funding in Nicaragua and the arms sales to Iran, they weren't just happening at the same time. They became dangerously tangled up. And what connected them? A hidden trail of dirty money.
The idea, which was pushed by an NSC staffer named Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, was as simple as it was, well, completely illegal. The plan was to take the profits from selling weapons to Iran and use that cash to fund the war in Nicaragua, a war that Congress had explicitly said the U.S. could not support.
This whole scheme became known as the diversion. Here's how it worked. Step 1, sell missiles to Iran at an insane markup. Step 2, funnel those massive profits directly into the secret Swiss bank accounts of the Enterprise, completely bypassing the U.S. Treasury. And Step 3, use that untraceable money to arm the Contras. It was basically a self-funding illegal war machine. And if you're wondering just how much money we're talking about, get this. Just one missile cell in 1986 generated over $6 million in pure, untraceable cash for the shadow company. This was not a small-time operation.
But you know, a secret this big, this complicated, it was bound to blow up eventually. And when the walls started closing in, the mission changed from covert ops to a frantic, desperate cover-up. And the whole thing started to unravel fast. First, a supply plane going to the Contras gets shot down, and an American is captured. Boom, a direct link. Less than a month later, a newspaper breaks the story about the arms sales to Iran. Suddenly, the whole house of cards was collapsing.
So with exposure right around the corner, what did they do? They went into full-on panic mode. Oliver North and his secretary, Fawn Hall, became famous for shredding mountains of documents. Officials cooked up fake timelines and just straight up lied to Congress, all to try and keep the lid on.
And look, this wasn't an accident or some misunderstanding. The cover-up was built on pure, calculated deception. I mean, Oliver North himself later admitted his statements were, in a quote, false, misleading, evasive, and wrong. Dishonesty was baked into the entire operation from the very start.
So the story is out. The scandal is massive, the biggest since Watergate. And now, two very different kinds of investigations kick off. You've got a political one run by Congress and a legal one run by what's called an independent counsel. And they had very different goals.
To get to the bottom of the potential crimes, the legal system brought in independent counsel Lawrence Walsh. His job wasn't to create headlines for the nightly news. It was to conduct a slow, methodical criminal investigation to answer one question: were laws broken here?
And Walsh himself put it perfectly. He said Congress was the noisy whistle, loud, public, trying to get the story out fast. But he saw his own job as the silent alarm, quietly and carefully gathering evidence that would hold up in a court of law.
And this is where those two goals just slammed right into each other. Congress, wanting that noisy whistle, gave immunity to Oliver North and others so they would testify on live television. Now, it made for incredible TV, but it ended up torpedoing the criminal cases later on. Their convictions were eventually thrown out because their testimony was protected by that immunity.
So, okay, why are we still talking about a scandal from the 1980s? Because Iran-Contra wasn't just about politics.
It forced the entire country to ask some really tough questions about power, secrecy, and what accountability really means in a democracy.
I mean, the final congressional report, it did not pull any punches. It described a shadow government that was built on secrecy and a total disdain for law. They basically saw the law as an annoying obstacle. The report called it a privatization of foreign policy that completely violated the Constitution.
Now, President Reagan always maintained he didn't know about the money diversion, but the congressional report was pretty clear on this. It basically said whether you knew or not, you should have known. The ultimate responsibility had to rest with the president for the culture he created and the people he put in power.
And really, if you want to boil this entire scandal down to one single chilling idea, it's this quote from one of the officials involved. He said that, "Sometimes you have to go above the written law." It's this belief that if you think your cause is right, you can break any rule, lie to anyone to get what you want.
Which really leaves us with this huge, unsettling question that's just as relevant today as it was back then. What happens to a democracy when its own leaders decide they are above the very laws they swore an oath to defend?
You know, it's no accident that the final Iran-Contra report included this powerful warning from Justice Louis Brandeis. It's the ultimate lesson here. When a government breaks its own rules, it doesn't just commit a crime. It chips away at the very foundation of its own authority and the trust of the people it's supposed to serve.